Welcome to Bleav in Colts, where Lawrence Owen and DeQuell Jackson brings you everything about the shoe.
What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen, and with me as usual is DeQuell Jackson. How was your day been today, DeQuell?
Couldn't be better, man. I woke up today, my son was smiling at me, and listen, life is good. I can't be better. I couldn't be happier.
Awesome. Okay, so I had a bit of a rough night, as we discussed earlier. A lot of rain come through and leaks in my roof, but you know, we pushed this back so we could have an actual live stream and people in the chat be able to say what's up. My co-host, actually, from my other podcast is actually in the chat. That's cool. Appreciate you in here representing my guy. So some news happened today.
Yes.
And we're going to kind of discuss it a little bit. Apparently, Carson Wentz, Zach Pascal, Ryan Kelly, they were in close contact with a person in the organization that tested positive for COVID. And now they are on a 5-day isolation while waiting on that. Do you have any words to say about the situation?
Yeah, so as much when I heard the news, I had to, try to do some research on my own, because initially, if you go in the protocol, if you're not vaccinated, that means you go in the protocol. Is that correct? If you're in close contact. So
yes. Initially,
I'm thinking, okay, these guys have 2 weeks to prepare for the Seattle Seahawks. You need everyone healthy. You need everyone available. And it's unfortunate that these three guys who are starters, who are big contributors to the Indianapolis Colts, are in this position. Now, it's not their fault. As you mentioned, they were in close contact with the front office individual who contracted the COVID virus, and now they're in protocol. Now, does that mean they cannot show up to the building? They cannot have any contact with anyone within those 5 days. So to me, as a player, you need everyone right now, especially the starters who set out this past game, working together, communicating together, doing all these things to make sure you iron out all the nicks, the kinks, and whatever you have to get through and communicate with in order to be prepared and ready, because we need everyone available for the Seattle Seahawks. And on another note, I'm a guy who I'm vaccinated, and everyone has a different perspective or belief system, whether to not get vaccinated. And you and I spoke offline briefly. We both agree it's about the individual, right? And I'm not one of those people that's going to blame these guys for something they unintendedly contracted. But, we don't know their individual stories. We don't know their individual belief system. So I'll leave that at that. And if anyone wants to talk about it, I'm here to talk more in depth about it for sure. But this is a huge blow. Carson Wentz, we're talking about, he was able to get back in such a expedited time. You have him back, and now this happens. So not only are his teammates on the offensive side of the ball are going to feel that blow, everyone's going to feel it. The offensive coordinator is going to feel it. Frank Wright is going to feel it. So this is going to be challenging to see how they're able to prepare, because this, in my opinion, is a worst case scenario going into the first game of the season.
Yeah, it is awful. Pretty much the only thing that Carson Wentz has right now is the day and a half of full practice that he had at the beginning of camp, and then those 3 days that he had with 7-on-7s and personals last week.
He needs all the work he could possibly get. Everyone's talking about, this is the year where he could finally be reunited with Frank Wright, where he had his best seasons in the NFL when he was playing with the Eagles. People have a lot of expectations for this team year in and year out, but especially so this year. In my opinion, this is a make or break season for Carson Wentz. And right now, again, I'm not blaming him, but in the same breath, when he gets back, he needs to come back, firing on all cylinders. And let me add another caveat to this story. We don't know how this is going to affect him moving forward. We talked briefly offline about Cam Newton last year. And I know this is a Colts broadcast, but I just want to bring this point up. Cam Newton last year was playing pretty well before he was in COVID protocols. He got back. He was never the same. Now, was that the issue? I don't know, but I'm pretty confident it has something to do with his inability to play as well as he did prior to being in COVID protocols.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And it's not just Wentz. Think about Ryan Kelly, a guy who just got on the NFL 100 list, actually, for the Colts. And he's missed a few weeks due to a hyperextended elbow through preseason, got back, started practicing a little bit with Carson Wentz, and now he's out as well with it. So, and that's your handoff. That's everything right there, and they need all the time in the world together so that there's no mistakes in between that handoff and making adjustments at the line and stuff when you see the defense in front of you and making adjustments and things like that is quarterback and center's job. So
you hit a home run with that, because as a middle linebacker, in my previous years playing middle linebacker, the quarterback center exchange is paramount. Mm-hmm. First, that between the relationship that they have is paramount. And also, as you mentioned, I'm glad you brought it up, the communication, the pre-snap communication, who's coming, who's not, which way is the line going to full slide? If we're going to slide away from the back, the center and quarterback have to be on the same page. I've seen it in practice before, from Hasselback to Andrew Luck at practice. There have been times where the quarterback is calling protection to go one way and the center is calling for the protection to go the other way. And you know what? We gotta, blow the whistle, get it figured out, and come back the next play. And Ryan Kelly was a big part of that. When I was there, he was a first round draft pick there. So there was a lot of kinks you had to work out. So the time missing, especially between these two guys, is paramount. I can't say it enough. And every other guy on that team, T.Y. Hilton, he's expecting Carson Wentz to be back. He needs to catch balls. He needs to see how the ball comes out of his hand. I know he's a veteran. I know he's done it before. But Carson Wentz needs to prove that he can be available. He needs to prove that he can command a huddle and all the things that he's done before. But every coach is sitting back saying that, man, every coach wants to go into a regular season with all their guys healthy, all their guys available. And God forbid, I know this is a unique circumstance with COVID luring, but this is going to be interesting to see how this unfolds.
We have a pretty big donation. Thank you, Ross, for the donation in the stream. Just a few seconds ago, he donated $40. Thank you so much.
Hey, Ross, get a man.
He says, congratulations, Lawrence and Chuck, because that's the name of my other co-host, on your success of being able now to chat with DeQuell Jackson, who is my co-host now on Bleav in Colts. He says, you're a legendary Pro Bowler, and especially since you played inside linebacker, just like Ross played inside linebacker. A lot of respect.
The respect is given back to you, my friend. We appreciate the donation. So I wonder what level he reached. Was it high school, middle school, or college? Well, hey, one linebacker from one linebacker to another, we appreciate it.
Absolutely,
we definitely do.
Absolutely. And so there's Brandon Wood in the comment section says Pascal doesn't scare me as much as Wentz and Kelly do because they have no chemistry right now. Kelly has been with a lot of quarterbacks, basically a new one every year since he's been in.
Sure.
And so he's not all that worried about it. Being the fact that Kelly has had to move from one quarterback to another every year, do you think that will help him gain that connection with Wentz when it happens?
Well, I can tell you this. That's a great point he brings up. I can tell you this. He is familiar with that, being unfamiliar with a guy. So he knows how to prepare and what it's going to take in order to expedite that time. And whether it be, definitely time after practice, during practice, after practice, before practice, all these different things. That is the hope that we all have, that Kelly and both of these guys understand the sense of urgency that they're under, the team is under, and how important, both of their jobs are predicated off each other. The team, especially so, those two guys, and that's a good point. Kelly has been through it before, and it helps to have that experience.
Ross jumps back in and said that he only played high school. He got out of it after he had a horrendous rotator cuff injury. So sorry if that happened to you. I had a knee injury. That's why I ended up getting out. I had my knee blown out, had to knee replacement, everything. It was awful. Things like that happen. That's one of the roads that happen to a lot of football players, and not just football players, sports in general. That's why,
no doubt,
you have a lot of people who even could, have potential to make it through into college and possibly beyond, but because of injuries and stuff, sometimes that'll knock them out.
Lawrence, there's a guarantee within the locker rooms of there's one thing you can guarantee when you make it to the NFL is injuries. They happen, man. You can't avoid them. And I've been blessed not to have any serious, significant knee issues. Only in college, but never much so in the pros. So I escaped that bullet. But I have torn some pecs and broken a big toe and broken a wrist and all those other things. So my body has definitely taken a beating and a pounding from years and years of playing a contact sport. But guess what? I'll do it all over again. I will do it all over again. I love it that much.
Absolutely. We got another donation by Colts Loyalist. It's Chuck, my other co-host. He drops $5. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. You could have just dropped the question in the chat. I would have got to it. He says, with Kelly and Wentz missing this week, does that put us behind on installing a game plan with Frank Reich?
No, because one thing I can tell you about NFL guys and veteran guys and experienced guys, this is part of the maturity as a pro. You can be a pro on the field, you can get the mental reps, the physical reps, but being a pro and it's going to show Kelly's experience. And I think Wentz has it figured out. He understands how to prep for a game and all those different things. But I think this is what, a lot of us, I played 11 years. I had to do it many a times. Chuck Pagano, I was on the back nine of my career. He told me, he was like, listen, you're only going to practice 3 days a week. One day is going to be a mental day. And he trusted that I was going to mentally prepare and be ready for the regular season. I don't have any problems with either one of these guys having any mental blips throughout the week. They'll be able to get the game plan. I don't think, at the very least, they have the game plan for if Carson Wentz does or does not play. I don't know if that's been we know that for sure. But I think everyone's going to be bought in. Everyone's going to get the game plan. That'll be a non-issue in my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear because, I mean, when you're a veteran, you start, like you said, you start out like that. So last year, Rivers didn't get a whole lot of time with Kelly starting out, right? Because there was no preseason, no training camp, nothing like that. And yes, he did start off a little slow, but at the same time, that it didn't affect the game plan that Reich was bringing out. So So
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, at the very least, it'll affect their play, but from a mental standpoint, they'll be hitting on all cylinders as far as a game plan. They're not going to not install something because of a guy could be there or not. So that's a non-issue in my opinion. These guys are both savvy veteran guys.
All right. Now, from what we saw in the preseason games, there was questions about the tackle position because obviously Eric Fisher still dealing with his injury, and then he got put on COVID protocol last week. A lot of thoughts of maybe, that might push back his rehab a little bit.
Do we know, is there a timeline for Eric Fisher to come back? Do we have any idea? I mean, I don't off the top of my head, but Achilles injury, that is not a easy thing to come back from. But, they took a chance on him. I think when they do get him back, that guy he's a beast. He is a beast. He's blocked for one of the best to ever do it. So I thought it was a great pickup for us. But not to cut you off. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's all good. I was just curious on your end. Do you think that the Colts should lean more heavily on their running game until they get that offensive line to full cylinders?
Yes, absolutely. I think that was one of the reasons Carson Wentz decided while everyone thinks he can be successful, because we have a great offensive line. We have a very good defense. We have a very great running game with Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. I know Marlon Mack is on the shelf right now. He's injured. But, there's some preseason guys that stood out to me, Jackson being one of them. But I think to answer your question directly, you have to. When you're undermanned, when you're in that gray area, you don't know if Carson Wentz will be available. You have some issues with Ryan Kelly, some of your offensive players being in COVID protocol. I think you had to lean on the anchor of your team, which is running the ball heavily, playing a simple, solid execution style offense, and playing great defense to just save your team and buy your team some time until Carson Wentz is healthy and able to get in rhythm, get in sync with his receivers, T.Y., Zach Pascal, and many other guys. So I think that's the easy formula. That's the easy formula, in my opinion. It's like you don't shoot yourself in the foot. You do what you do best. You can run the football and play great defense. So I'm a huge component of that. I'm a linebacker, man. So I love that old school 907 style football, and it wears on defenses. It really wears on defense and allows the offensive passing game to open up as well.
So I got to shout this dude out because Daniel Martin Sonnenfeld is sitting here, and he says, do you think the Colts will beat Seattle? I'll be making my first trip to Lucas Oil Stadium week 1, and all I want is the Colts to win because I'm a lifelong Colts fan from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Whoa.
He's right in the heart of like Colts hating country, right? I mean, my goodness. So shout out to you, my guy. Oh, yeah, my.
Much respect for you, man. A diehard Colt fan in Tennessee land. But I do think if we have all of our horses ready to go, I think, like you talked about, one thing that can help us early in the season is running the football, playing great defense. Darius Leonard, I'm looking for exciting things from him this year. Signed a massive contract this offseason, so he's out to prove that he's worthy of it. You have a guy like Grover Stewart and DeFord. I mean, we have guys that can get it done early on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. I think it's a huge task now. It's a huge task with Russell Wilson and stopping what they do best on offense, but I do like our chances.
So what do you think of the pass rush that you saw in the preseason this year? Do you think that they'll complement those inside tackles that we have in Stewart and Buckner?
I was surprised, and I'm optimistic about Kwity Paye. I like what he was able to do. You watched him last game against the Lions. He did what he was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is he wasn't playing against the guys he's going to play against on Sunday. He's playing against guys that he should beat, that he should dominate. And that's what I was looking for. Did he control the line of scrimmage? Now, there's some technique issues here and there, but overall, I think that's the biggest question mark of this team. Will they be able to generate outside pressure? Again, Darius Leonard is a great middle linebacker that can rush the passes, so he adds that extra layer of being able to play behind the line of scrimmage, but you have to try to manufacture pressure some way. If you don't have a guy that's a solidified 10-sack guy, it has to come from every guy on that unit, and I think Matt Eberflus understands it. I think the coaching staff understands it, and I do think, this defense with Xavier Rhodes on the back end and Kenny Moore, I think you do have a shot to be able to generate more pressure, but it's hard for me to say that they can really turn the corner and just, blow us away with, our sack total and guys rushing off the edge. I'm a little hesitant on that.
Talk about being a little hesitant. Earlier this offseason, Darius Leonard stated that he believes that the Colts will get 40 turnovers this year. And,
I heard this.
and he was re-asked that literally, I think, last game and he says, absolutely, we're going to get it. And I'm just like, 40, holy cow.
That's a tall task. I would rather hear him talk about sacks, but 40 turnovers, that's a lot. You have to be lucky, and you have to be lucky. You hear me? But hey, listen, you got to shoot for the clouds here when you play in Indy. They expect big things. Obviously, he expects big things. Hell, he got signed a massive contract. I'll be saying the same. He's supposed to say it, and I think he actually believes it. But 40 is a lot. 40 is a lot, but hey, if we can get close to it, that means we're winning games. We're playing great on defense.
Absolutely. I mean, the Colts were second, if I remember correctly, in the NFL last year in the turnover ratio. So, and I think they had, they were in the 20s with turnovers. So, 40, that's a...
We will have to look that up. I need to look that up after we get off this show. Okay, has there been a defensive team to generate 40 turnovers? And when I think of that, I think about 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, when they crushed everyone, and they hung their hats on creating turnovers like crazy. And I don't imagine they were close to 40, but they were obviously a Super Bowl winning defense.
Absolutely.
Let's do it. 40 is the number, huh?
Well, there is, I mean, Darius was talking about, there was a lot of opportunities where, dropped interceptions and they had forced fumbles but didn't recover, and situations where they should have forced a fumble. I mean, if there's anyone out there, in my opinion, that could do something like that, it is Darius, because, I mean, Look what he did last year. He forces turnover. That's what he does. That's what he's so popular for. Ross in here with another $20 dub. What in the world, Ross? DeQuell still have to bring up all the fact that you wreaked so much havoc on my Patriots. He's a Patriot fan in here dropping money.
Patriots fan.
Yes,
hey,
he's a Patriot fan.
To my guy. Oh my God! Hey, listen, that is probably the only and last compliment I've ever received from a Patriots fan. So we do appreciate it. Oh man, you bring up the Patriots. Whew. Man, I was going back, and I have a bunch of film around the house and the old memorabilia. And during the pandemic, I was able to go through a lot of these boxes, and I found some tape. And I think I've played Brady maybe 3 times ever in my career. I think I picked him off twice. Once with the Browns, once with the Colts, obviously. But funny story. So some years ago, Bill Belichick had a son playing lacrosse in the Maryland, D.C. area, and Maryland's pro day was up, and I was there, and Bill Belichick was there. Out of all people, like Maryland didn't have a top pick of the draft or anything like that, and we actually had a conversation on his way out, and I was with the Browns at the time, and I picked Brady off early that year on what we call a dagger route. It was a deep end cut from the number one. I picked it off, and we just had a funny story about that, but maybe someday I'll tell you that story. But he gave me a compliment, which he doesn't do to anyone. So it gave me courage to that I was doing the right things and all that. But that's my little funny story about Bill Belichick and the Patriots. But we appreciate the donation, bud. Really do.
Absolutely, man. $60 from a Patriots fan, ladies and gentlemen. Holy crap!
Wow. Wow.
Skylar and Kirsten has a great question that I would love to have your opinion on. He says that Dan Orlovsky, I'm sure you know who that is.
Yes.
Okay. He said today that he thinks that the Colts should take the next few days off and then try to practice this weekend to allow Wentz and them to get more practice in. What's your take on that?
I think it works, but you need to – here's the thing. You don't want to stop the schedule of your entire team for a handful of guys, because – this is going to be an ongoing process, a fluid issue throughout the season. So if we're in the middle of the season, you're not going to stop what you're doing based on a couple guys. Like we talked about earlier, they have to get their mental reps, and they'll be able they won't be able to stand outside with the guys, but they'll be there in spirit. Listen, these guys are under new normal. These guys were able to play a full season last year without a training camp, and things worked out the way they worked out. I think this year we have a training camp. Things happen. It is a great point from Dan Orlovsky you say, you know what? I want all my guys, when we're on the field, to be on the field at the same time so we can hear the cadence, so we can see who's across from us. So the things that we talked about with Ryan Kelly and Carson Wentz, having that communication, taking that center quarterback exchange, making adjustments at the line of scrimmage, I'm here for all of it. But I don't think you should reschedule everything based on a couple guys that are important. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sure right after the season, there's cut. You have to get down to a certain amount of guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. Those guys are going to get a couple of days off regardless. That's typically how the NFL works. So you're going to get those couple of days. I don't know if Carson Wentz and those guys will be able to be a part of it when the guys come back together, but I wouldn't do it personally if I was a head coach. But I'm sitting here and I'm not Frank Wright, so it's probably a reason why,
Hey, you never know. If you wanted to throw your hat in the coaching ring, I'm sure you could, man.
It'll be fun.
Roy Crosby, a Dolphins fan, says he follows me and he wants to keep up the great. Thanks for the follow, Roy. Appreciate that. Loyalist again in here with the donation. My goodness, Chuck, what's up, dude? He says, do you think that we can keep our top 2 run defense from last year, and thoughts on our linebacker depth? And I'm gonna throw mine out there real quick. I'm a little worried about our linebacker depth. I do like Darius Leonard, obviously, sideline to sideline really fast. He's actually, one of his best things is he's able to get off blocks so well. He uses that arm length in his hands and stuff so really well, just to be able to disengage with blockers, and that helps a ton. Bobby Okariki's built very similar, but I don't see that same ability. Now he's, something I believe that he could probably work on in the future. But with the loss of Anthony Walker Jr., that makes me a little bit worried because he was a solid Mike.
Yeah, he was a stout guy. Yeah.
Very good against the run. Now, I understand Bobby's going to fill that role. And then last year we played our base defense only 30% of the time, which means we only had a Sam linebacker 30% of the time out there. And he usually played the Sam. Now we're going to be looking for someone new to step up, whether it's Zaire Franklin or Matthew Adams or whoever it is that is generally a special teamer,
Right.
And that makes me a bit worried, especially on first down or second and short. What are your thoughts on the potential of our run defense this year?
Yeah, we seem to look through the same lens on this issue because you're right. The depth kind of worries me. You have a Darius Leonard who's a game-changing ability. But again, you mentioned Anthony Walker Jr. You need a guy who is more stout of a guy for the run-heavy base personnel groupings. You're going to see on short yardage and 3rd and 3 to less, 4th down stops. You need those big space eaters to be able to get downhill on the goal line to play those stout plays. That's going to come up more often than not. And you alluded to, the style of offense that's played now. You're 30% of the time, as you mentioned, you're in base defense. This other 70%, you're in 4 wide. You're in smaller people personnel, I like to say. And now that's where Darius Leonard matches up well. Now you can have, your speed guys on the field. So this is an area that concerns me. However, the way the game is played now, I think aside from the depth, I mean, Anthony Walker Jr. was that guy that you need, but I think you'll be able to get by because of Darius Leonard, because he will be the Mike linebacker on sub defense. He will be the guy blitzing off the edge. So, and you have another guy that can cover. And, it does concern me, but not as much so because you have a great front in front of them. You have guys who can get it done, DeForest Buckner and, Grover Stewart, who we talked about. And now you added another first-round draft pick to that D-line. That's going to cover up some holes for that back end. And I think that's what Chris Ballard and the scouting department and Frank Wright were trying to build. You got a fast sideline-to-sideline linebacker and Darius Leonard who leads that group. But how do you protect him? You get big guys up front who can play behind the line of scrimmage. And, you got to generate sacks. You got to generate pressure. So it does concern me, but it doesn't.
Yeah. I talk about we talk about the linebackers all the time. We talk about the Will. We talk about the Sam. And basically that's weak side, strong side. And I had discussed this earlier, and I bet a lot of people don't know this unless they played football. So I thought that I'd give you an opportunity to explain why is the right tackle side considered strong side and left tackle side considered weak side?
You were breaking up a little bit. Are you talking about the defense?
Yes.
Or the offense?
Yes.
The defense? Yeah.
Strong side, weak side. Why is it called strong side, weak side?
Yeah, so basically the way the defense is structured is, so there's guys who travel together, right? Like based on the offense, if an offense comes out, and we consider the strong side being the tight end side. So that's the strength of the defense. In theory, that's where if you're going to run the ball, you're going to run to your bigger people. If I can explain it in just the simplest form, if you're going to run the football, 9 times out of 10, you want to run it to the guys who are bigger, right? To create more lanes and opportunities for your running back. So as a defense, you have to match up that personnel with big people. So the Mike, the Sam, the right DN, you travel together. So and then the wheel side linebacker, the left DN, and left nose tackle, they all travel together. So when you see guys flying, moving around, typically those guys are going to be on the same side. And it's just matching up body type for body type. And to get in the weeds of it, for instance, when I played in the 3-4, I always traveled with a handful of guys that were on that. And if I was ever on the side, I played wheel linebacker. If I was ever on the side when Eric Walden, if we were ever on the same side, I know one of us is screwed up. So it's a way to correct yourself on the field, and it's a way to protect yourself at the same breath. Because again, it's all about matching body types, and based on calls, defensive calls that you get, based on if a guy motions from slot to create another slot on the other side of the ball, you want to match your safety or your nickel back with like bodies, and we determine that by strength, whether that's the strength side or the weak side. If that can, try to explain that the simplest way I could, but yeah, without confusing everyone.
Alpha has a question that I'm going to kind of Alpha Wolf in the chat. I'm going to kind of adjust it a little bit. The way linebackers are changing nowadays, you see guys that used to play safety, right, that kind of body style, now playing like Darius Leonard. His body type basically was a safety 20 years ago. Do you see the evolution continuing to change at the defense positions?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And to jump at Darius Leonard, for one, 10 years ago, he would have been considered an undersized linebacker. He probably would have gone later in the draft that he did. I was considered undersized as a linebacker, and guess what? They talked about your durability. Now the game has changed. When I was drafted, thank goodness, the football guys were looking out, because that was the year Jerome Bettis from the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to retire. So my 6 foot, 230-pound butt didn't have to, meet that bust in the hole. So yeah, the game changes because of the rule changes, right? Like now teams are throwing the ball like crazy. So again, you have to match body types. And now you see this shift of the middle linebacker towards the later part of my career. Teams would single me out, spread me out, put a slot receiver or agile running back on me, because they know 9 times out of 10, that guy's much faster than I am. And I'm looking on the island waiting for my help over top. So now the NFL has said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out and get a Darius Leonard style of linebacker who can run like crazy, who can match up in coverage, and also play downhill. Who does that better than anyone? Safeties have been doing that for years. And so if you can get a safety that can convert, put on a little bit of weight, be able to run downhill, be able to match up with the Travis Kelce's of the world, and all the great tight ends in this league, you see an evolution there. You see an evolution at the safety position as well, the free safety guys, the cornerback position. These guys are getting taller and longer, and faster. So everyone goes for size. I don't care who you are, from the high school ranks to the professional ranks. If you have a guy that plays the position and he passes the eye test, you know what the eye test is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If he passes the eye test and he has all the intangible things tied to him, I mean, that is an ideal situation. But, not all football players come in, are the biggest, strongest, fastest guy. The guys who have it all are the guys who have figured it out mentally, how to, they study their butts off. They play the game above the shoulders, and they're able to get it done.
Loyalist says, the Colts play against this generation's Jerome Bettis twice a year. And Henry.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That guy, what intimidates him about most guys, in the NFL locker rooms, they call it a business decision. Have you ever heard that term?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of guys that are really close friends of mine who I've played with in the secondary, they ever matched up with a guy as big as Henry and other guys who are, bruisers like who's the guy out of Minnesota, out of Oklahoma, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, listen, guys will turn down contact and have a business, make a business decision quick. But I've seen it before, and it makes it so difficult to tackle a guy as big as a linebacker because he's running with a full head of steam. And if you don't come with the same foot, same shoulder, and, it's going to be a long day for you because he's running through arm tackles and he can run as fast as secondary guys. So you're right. He is the new age Jerome Bettis in the AFC South.
So what you just talked about brings up an interesting question in my mind. I've always said the way to tackle Henry is go low. Take him around, the thighs on down, right? But at the same time, when you're a bigger guy, when you're a guy in the front seven, diving like that all the time, that might be a little bit, more
problematic on
the body. Yeah.
Right.
As opposed to just going up like you normally would and, bear hugging a guy and bringing him down. Is that also kind of play into it?
Yeah, in theory, you want to, for a guy as big as, Henry and some other guys who have played in the NFL before, I've had coaches say, we need to get pressure. And if you're behind the line, if you stop him from going north and south right away, force him to go lateral to stop his momentum, we have a shot. So now everyone rallies to the ball. Even if you may not stop him from being a great player, at least you minimize the damage. And with him, when he gets a full head of steam, and no one touches him throughout the line of scrimmage, Darius Leonard's going to have a tough time. Even though we think the world of Darius Leonard, it's going to be a tough task for him to get a guy like Henry down by himself. And he's going to fall for 3 yards. So I had some good coaches in the past say, when you have a good back like that, we need to, get pressure up the middle and see if we can force him to go east and west instead of north and south right away.
Yeah, that's a really good statement. It's a good thing we got good defensive tackles because I'll tell you what, when Stewart and Buckner are both in at the same time against the Titans, we see that he does not nearly run for as many yards. When Buckner missed that game against the Titans week 10 last year, he ran all over Indy. And a lot of people want to say, well, that's Stewart's fault because he was in there. Stewart was replacing DeForest Buckner's spot, but then you had the backup for Stewart replacing that one tech, and now that was an issue. So,
yeah, trust me, I've had many long nights tackling guys with my days in Cleveland in that AFC South or AFC North rather. But it could be a long day. Anytime you take out, you miss a presence like Buckner. I mean, come on. You can't expect the backup to just replace him. He's irreplaceable. And, that's why it's so important to have guys up front that are able to hold the point of attack and also able to shed and release, get off blocks, play with their eyes as well as their hands. So those two guys are probably, in my opinion, the two best tandems you could find on any D-line. Right now. And, they do an exceptional job and allows the guys behind them to reap all the benefits. So I'm sure Darius Leonard's taking great care of those guys. Because I know I tried to when I was there, man. Any guy that was willing to give up his body and to just take up two in order for me to make the play and get the glory, you got to take care of those guys.
Defense line, offensive line, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm not saying, weight-wise. I'm talking height. Like, DeForest Buckner is a mountain of a man. Grover Stewart's a mountain of a man. You go look at some of these offensive linemen, you're looking 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guys, right?
Yeah,
and what when you have the offensive line, the defensive line, they come together. I call that kind of the wash, right? And how difficult is it as a linebacker or a safety to be able to see through that, to know where the ball is sometimes?
Yeah, it's a lot of film study, a ton of film study, and understanding blocking schemes. When I took my career to the next level, you look at all the guys that are in the league right now that plays in that front seven, in that box, the great linebackers, the great safeties, the guys that can play behind the line of scrimmage, they have great eyes in anticipation, and a lot of film study to tell you, okay, if there's a pull, if I'm on the left side, if I'm the left weak side linebacker, the tight end is over here, and the tackle pulls across from me, you have to know right now, as a back, you have to know right now, this tight end or this tackle, he's chipping and coming up to me. So it's understanding blocking schemes is one, and two, just being able to, it's trial and error. Where sometimes it's not going to all work out for you all the time, but it's the guy that's willing to take that chance and to trust what he sees and have his legs follow. And those are the guys that play, when you turn on the tape and when you watch them, it looks so effortless. And Darius Leonard, when he's rolling, when he's playing behind the line of scrimmage, it looks so effortless, and it's like he shot out of a cannon. Mm-hmm. So those are the guys who, as a former player, and if you watch the game, those guys understand blocking schemes. They understand what your defensive call allows them to do and how to manipulate things within the scheme. So that's the part I do miss, Lawrence. I love that chess match of the game, and that's just what it is. We call it a game within the game. There's a game plan. You understand blocking schemes, but once the whistle blows, the guy falls, the guy gets pushed out of his gap, you have to make everyone right. And that is signs of a great defense and a great play. I love that part of it. I absolutely love that part of the game.
Well, that also makes for great information because, you love that chess match. You understand all this stuff. You can bring it to us. So, and that's what you're doing here. So that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Joe Thornburg, go ahead.
So the hardest guy, you talk about size, right? This was probably the later part. I was with the Colts at the time. We were playing the Dallas Cowboys, and Tyron Smith. Probably one of the biggest humans I've ever played against. And I tried every move I possibly could. It was a scenario I brought up where they ran some sort of counter play. And I knew who was blocking me. I knew he was coming for me. I tried spin moving. I tried to duck underneath. Every time he just pumped me into the ground. I got up saying, it was so bad, Lawrence. I got up and I was like, you're a hell of a player, bro. Because most of the time that my moves work on a lot of these tackles who are slow-footed, but I knew right then he was going to be one that was going to stay around for a very long time if he could stay healthy. But that was my little quick story about me getting pummeled at the linebacker position.
And you told him that?
I did. I'd never done that before. Never done that before in my career. Wow. I was like, I had to give him respect. I'm like, dude, you're a hell of a player. Because I gave you everything I had, and I knew what the player was. I knew who was blocking me, and I still couldn't get around him. So that never happened to me. And it never happened to me up until that point.
Wow. Okay, so we were talking about Buckner and Stewart earlier. Joseph Thornburg, who is a Steeler fan but also follows me. Okay. And so that tells you a lot right there.
Yeah. He must really like you. He must really like
And well, hold on, because he says, I think Buckner and Stewart are the best interior duo in the NFL. And that's saying something because the Steelers have a pretty darn good interior duo themselves. Yes. So heck of a compliment there, Joe.
It is. The hard work those guys are putting in. Hey, listen, those guys who's reaping the benefits? The guys behind him, Darius Leonard. He doesn't sign that big contract without those guys being as good as they are. And I'm sure he'll be the first one to tell you that. But, hey, it's a team game, and those guys do a heck of a job of playing up front. And I'm with him. They could arguably it's up for discussion. Those guys could be one of the best tandems in the league.
Yeah, there's a reason why you go out and get interior linemen. If you can't find one that is super exceptional, there's reasons why you go to free agents. There's a reason why the Colts went and got Corey Redding, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Baltimore pedigree, big playoff experience. When I got to, and Corey, let me say, Corey Redding is one of the most fantastic men I've ever been around. Just, just a presence when he walks in the room, a professional. I never walked into, we spoke about this, I think last week or so, but offline. But when I walked into the Colts, facility and met the players, they invested heavily into veteran players because we were at that point where we wanted to win and we wanted to win now. The whole thing, the Super Bowl. And Corey was one of those guys who were, he understood blocking schemes. He understood, where my fit was supposed to be relative to where his fit was supposed to be. I never experienced a D lineman that was so in tune into the rest of the defense. So those are the guys who, again, it's by no accident the guys are really good in the National Football League. Everyone has talent. There's a lot of parity throughout the NFL. It's the guys that actually spend the time to understand how blocking schemes work, what plays, what tendencies the opposite team is going to run, and communication. So it's not by chance these guys have a career playing well. So Corey is one of those guys that had an exceptional career, and he was very productive with the Colts and with the Baltimore Ravens at the time.
All right, so I was given basically a time limit by Bleav Podcast Network, somewhere between a half hour to an hour for each podcast, because this is generally an audio podcast. We're sitting at about 47 minutes now.
I already feel like we just started.
Doesn't it? It's like, man, we just started 10 minutes ago, just sitting here chilling, having fun. Maybe we could do this live thing more often, because this is great. I love these.
Yeah, I love the feedback from the listeners listening and asking, and these were some highly intelligent questions. Yeah. So shout out to the Colts fan base for having real football questions, and I love it. I can talk ball all day.
We'll probably close it out with one question, and it's a personal one for you, by Daniel Martin Sonnenfeld. He says, what was your favorite regular season game memory for the Colts?
Oh, that's an easy one. Was that set up? Did you put him up to this?
No.
No.
So
Daniel is his name, right?
Daniel, yes.
Daniel. So I have to say my favorite memory, there's two.
Okay.
The trip, when 2014 season, we beat Peyton Manning in Denver in the playoffs. And the game was just high tense. It was everything that you could possibly imagine, that you've grown up feeling the pressure of playing in a big game. But that wasn't it. It was the plane ride home. The plane ride home, oh my God. You talk about joy. I've never seen coaches that excited. I've never seen so many players that excited. The entire thing. It was a moment that I'll never forget, Lawrence and Daniel. It was one of those moments. Obviously, it was a team. It was a team moment for me. The team had played such a good game, and we all could enjoy it, at least for the plane ride, before we got ready to play the New England Patriots the week following. So that has to be one of my most memorable moments as a Colt. Just us having fun on the plane, enjoying the win, understanding how much Mr. Irsay and the Irsay family wanted this win, and we got it. And then the second one was obviously the interception and by myself in the AFC Championship game that sparked Deflategate. So that's one of my highlights of my career, two of my highlights of my career that I could talk about forever. It's so many levels to it. There's so many different stories behind it. And we would need just a hour just dedicated to talking about that moment. So that's a great question. I feel like I was put up to that. I feel like you put Daniel up to
I did not.
No, it's all good.
I don't do anything like that. I wouldn't do that to you, man.
No,
all
it's
right.
just a joke.
Well, I appreciate each and every one of you that joined. If you're listening to this podcast afterwards, be sure to go to YouTube and check out the video of it. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, make sure you go check out the Bleav in Colts podcast wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. We have DeQuell Jackson. And as usual, go Colts. Have a good one.